There are places on this earth where humanity has no dominion, where our technology means nothing, where our arrogance becomes our executioner. The Himalayas are one such place. I learned this truth not from books or documentaries, but from 3 days and nights trapped above 7,000 meters with something that should not exist, something that watched me with eyes that held more intelligence than I was prepared to accept. My name is Thomas Brennan, and for 23 years I made my living as a professional mountaineer, guiding wealthy clients up the world's most dangerous peaks. I have summited Everest 4 times, K2 twice, and more than 30 other mountains that most people cannot even pronounce. I have seen avalanches bury entire expeditions, watched frostbite turn fingers black and dead, hold bodies from crevasses so deep that sunlight has never touched their walls. I thought I had seen everything the mountains could show me. I was catastrophically wrong. The expedition that destroyed my certainty and rebuilt my understanding of the world began in early March, during that narrow window between winter's fury and the spring monsoons. I was hired by a Belgian businessman named Henri Duchamps who had already conquered 6 of the 7 summits and wanted to add Kanchenjunga to his collection. At 8,586 meters, it is the 3rd highest mountain in the world and one of the most technically difficult. More importantly for my story, it is also one of the most remote, straddling the border between Nepal and Sikkim in a region so isolated that the nearest village requires a week of trekking through terrain that has barely changed since the last ice age. Our team was small by commercial expedition standards. Myself as lead guide, a Sherpa named Dawa who had climbed with me for over a decade, Henri, and a Japanese climber named Kenji Mori who was attempting to photograph the mountain for a coffee table book about sacred peaks. We established our base camp at 5,100 meters in a glacial valley so pristine, so utterly untouched by human presence, that I remember thinking it felt wrong to be there, as if we were trespassing in a cathedral reserved for gods. The silence in that place was not merely the absence of sound. It was a presence unto itself, a weight that pressed against your eardrums and made you aware of every breath, every heartbeat, every small noise your body made simply by existing. At night, the stars were so bright and numerous that they cast shadows on the snow. The temperature regularly dropped to -40 degrees Celsius, cold enough that exposed skin would freeze in less than a minute, cold enough that the moisture in your breath crystallized instantly into tiny diamonds of ice that tinkled as they fell to the ground. We were alone in that valley, or so we believed. The first 5 days of the expedition followed the familiar rhythm of high-altitude mountaineering. Wake before dawn, force down food that your oxygen-starved body does not want, climb until exhaustion or weather forces you to stop, establish camp, melt snow for water, sleep poorly in the thin air, and repeat. We moved our advanced base camp to 6,400 meters, establishing a route through a particularly nasty ice fall that had already claimed 3 lives in previous seasons. Dawa performed a puja ceremony at the base of the climb, burning juniper and barley flour while chanting prayers to Myoling Sangma, the goddess of Kanchenjunga. Henri found this quaint and photogenic. Kenji participated with genuine reverence. I went through the motions because it was expected, because the Sherpas would not climb without it, because tradition mattered in these mountains even if I did not truly believe. I should have believed. On the 6th morning, Dawa found the first tracks. We had camped on a narrow ledge carved into the side of a nearly vertical ice wall, a precarious perch that offered the only flat ground for kilometers in any direction. The tracks led from the glacier above us, descended the ice wall with impossible ease, circled our entire camp at a distance of perhaps 50 meters, and then ascended back up the wall and disappeared into a forest of ice seracs that would be suicidal for any human to navigate, especially at night. Each footprint was massive, easily 50 centimeters long and 25 wide, pressed deep into snow that had frozen to the consistency of concrete. The stride length was over 2.5 meters. Whatever made these tracks was not only enormous, but also possessed strength and agility that defied rational explanation. A human climber descending that ice wall would have needed ropes, anchors, ice screws, and extreme caution. These tracks showed no signs of hesitation, no slips, no use of hands for balance. Whatever made them had walked down a 70-degree ice wall as casually as I might walk down a sidewalk. "Yeti," Dawa said simply, his face carved from stone. "It knows we are here. It came to look at us while we slept." "It's probably just a distortion," I said, falling back on the comfortable skepticism that had served me well for 2 decades. Wind can create strange formations in the snow. Or maybe a rockfall from above created a series of impacts that look like footprints. We're at extreme altitude. The mind plays tricks. But even as I said the words, I was measuring the tracks with my ice axe, photographing them from multiple angles, trying to find some rational explanation that my training and experience would accept. The problem was simple. These were not distortions. They were not rockfall patterns. They were not any kind of natural formation I had ever encountered. They were footprints, clear and undeniable, made by something that walked on 2 legs and weighed considerably more than any human. Kenji was already filming, his camera capturing every detail. "In Japan, we call it Hibagon," he said quietly. "Different mountain, same legend. Every culture that lives near high peaks has stories of something that walks like a man, but is not a man. Why do you think that is, Thomas? Why would people separated by thousands of kilometers and centuries of time all describe the same creature?" "Coincidence," I replied. "Pattern recognition. The human brain is wired to see agency and intention even in random phenomena. We create monsters to explain what we don't understand. Or, Dawa said, we create stories to warn others about what is truly there." Henri wanted to continue. He had paid nearly $60,000 for this expedition, had trained for 18 months, and had flown halfway around the world to stand on this summit. A few unusual tracks were not going to deter him. "We're mountaineers," he said with the confidence of someone who has never been truly humbled by the mountains. "We deal with objective dangers every day. Avalanches, rockfall, crevasses, weather. Whatever made those tracks, it's just another variable to manage. I should have insisted we descend. I should have trusted Dawa's instincts, respected the legends, acknowledged that there might be things in these mountains that I did not understand. But I was a professional, and professionals do not cancel expeditions because of superstition. So I made the decision that would change everything. We would continue up, but we would be vigilant, would take extra precautions, would maintain watches through the night. We climbed through a landscape of such savage beauty that it hurt to look at. The ice gleamed like polished glass in the thin sunlight. The wind carved the snow into formations that looked like frozen waves, like the breath of dragons, like the sculptures of a mad artist working in materials that would exist for centuries. Above us, Kanchenjunga's summit pyramid pierced the sky, wreathed in a plume of ice crystals that extended for kilometers downwind. We were entering the death zone, the altitude above which the human body begins to die, where every moment spent is borrowed time, where even the strongest and most experienced climbers feel their strength ebbing with each passing hour. That night, at Camp 3 at 7,200 meters, we heard them. The sounds began just after midnight. I was lying in my tent, too exhausted to sleep properly, but too oxygen-deprived to rest, existing in that liminal state between waking and dreaming that is common at extreme altitude. At first, I thought the sounds were the wind, that familiar howl and moan that is the constant soundtrack of high mountains. But then the pattern changed, became rhythmic, purposeful. It was vocalization, complex and layered, coming from multiple directions at once. The calls were deep, subsonic rumbles that I felt in my chest before I consciously heard them. They rose and fell in patterns that suggested language, communication, meaning. And they were close, terrifyingly close, surrounding our camp in a coordinated pattern that spoke of intelligence and strategy. I unzipped my tent and looked out into the night. The moon was nearly full, bright enough to read by, casting the mountain in stark relief of silver and black shadow. And there, on a ridge perhaps 200 meters above us, I saw a shape. It stood upright against the sky, massive and unmistakably bipedal, and as I watched it raised its arms and produced one of those deep, resonant calls. Immediately, answers came from two other directions, creating a triangulation effect that placed our camp at the center of their attention. They were coordinating, planning, discussing what to do about the intruders in their domain. "Everyone up," I called, my voice hoarse from the thin air and the fear that was squeezing my throat. "Get dressed. Full gear. Now." Dawa emerged from his tent already fully clothed, as if he had been expecting this. Henri and Kenji tumbled out moments later, fumbling with headlamps and down suits. "What's happening?" Henri demanded. "What's going on?" "Look," I said, pointing at the ridge. But the shape was gone. The calling had stopped. The mountain was once again wrapped in that oppressive, heavy silence that I was beginning to understand was not natural at all, but imposed, maintained by something that controlled this environment with absolute authority. It was there, I insisted. Something big, standing on that ridge, calling to others. They were all around us. "Hypoxia," Henri said dismissively. "Altitude sickness. Your brain is oxygen-starved, creating hallucinations. It happens all the time up here." But Dawa was shaking his head. "No hallucination. The Yeti is real. It lives here, in these high places where humans cannot survive for long. We are in its home, and it is deciding what to do with us." He looked at me with an expression that combined fear and resignation. "We must descend. Tomorrow. First light. No discussion. We're less than 1,000 meters from the summit," Henri protested. "One more camp, one summit push, and we're done. We can't turn back now." "Yes," Dawa said flatly, "we can, and we must. The Yeti has given us a warning. The next time, it will not be a warning." I was torn between my professional obligation to my client and a growing dread that Dawa was absolutely right. The tracks, the sounds, the shape on the ridge, these were not random events. They were deliberate messages, escalating in intensity and proximity. We were being watched, evaluated, judged. And something about that realization made my blood turn cold despite the insulated layers I wore. "We'll make a decision in the morning," I said, trying to assert some authority over a situation that was rapidly spiraling beyond my control. "Everyone get some rest. We'll post watches, 2-hour shifts. If anything approaches camp, we wake everyone immediately." But we did not rest. We lay in our tents, listening to every sound, jumping at every creak of ice or whisper of wind, wondering if the next noise we heard would be the last noise we ever heard. Dawn came with agonizing slowness, the sun painting the peaks in shades of gold and pink that would have been breathtaking under any other circumstances. We emerged from our tents haggard and frightened, our faces wind-burned and frostbitten, our eyes hollow from lack of sleep and excessive fear. And that was when we discovered what had been left for us during the night. Arranged in a perfect circle around our camp, spaced at precise intervals, were skulls. Not human skulls, thank God, but the skulls of animals. Snow leopards, Himalayan taurs, even what appeared to be a small bear. Each skull was pristine, cleaned of all flesh and tissue, weathered by years or decades of exposure. And each one was positioned to face inward, toward our tents, creating a ring of empty eye sockets that stared at us with silent accusation. A boundary, Dawa said, his voice barely above a whisper. A warning. These are the Guardian's kills, proof of its dominance over this mountain. It is telling us, I rule here. I decide who lives and dies. You are here because I allow it. Do not test my patience further. Kenji was filming again, but his hands were shaking so badly that the footage would be useless. In the old stories, he said, the Yeti is not evil. It is a protector, a guardian of the sacred. It does not kill for pleasure or food. It kills to defend, to maintain balance, to keep the mountains pure. If this account is disturbing you, if it's challenging your understanding of what exists in the remote places of our world, please subscribe to our channel. Share this story with others who need to know that some mysteries are real and some warnings should be heeded. Your engagement helps spread awareness about the limits of human knowledge and the importance of respecting what we do not understand. Then we descend, I said firmly. Henri, I'm sorry, but the expedition is over. We're going down. Now. But Henri was staring at the summit. So close now, less than a day's climb away. I could see the calculation in his eyes, the weighing of risk against reward, the stubborn pride that had carried him to the tops of 6 other mountains. You go down if you want, he said. I'm going up. I didn't come this far to turn back because of some animal bones and spooky sounds. Henri, listen to me, I said, trying to keep my voice calm and rational. Whatever is out there, it's intelligent. It's trying to communicate with us. These skulls aren't random. This is a message, and the message is clear. Go back. Or what? Henri challenged. What's it going to do? We're armed. We're experienced. We have modern equipment. I'm not going to be intimidated by some local legend. And that was when we heard it. A sound that was neither wind, nor animal, nor anything I had ever heard in 23 years of climbing. It was a roar, deep and primal, that seemed to come from the mountain itself, reverberating off the ice walls and echoing through the glacial valleys. It was followed by another, and another, creating a chorus that surrounded us completely. They were close, very close, and they were angry. What happened next occurred so quickly that I still have trouble processing the sequence of events. One moment we were standing in our camp, surrounded by the circle of skulls, arguing about whether to ascend or descend. The next moment, the entire slope above us erupted in motion. They came down the mountain like avalanches given form and purpose. I counted at least 3, possibly more, massive bipedal figures covered in thick fur that ranged from silver white to dark brown. They moved with a speed and agility that should have been impossible for creatures of their size, leaping across crevasses that would require technical climbing skills for a human, descending ice walls that would kill anyone without ropes and protection. Inside the tents, Dawa shouted, "Make yourself small. Do not run." But Henri panicked. He grabbed his pack and started running down the mountain, stumbling and sliding in the deep snow, his ice axe forgotten in his tent. It was the worst possible decision, triggering every predatory instinct, showing weakness and fear to something that had evolved to read those signals with perfect accuracy. One of the creatures peeled off from the others and began pursuing Henri with casual, almost lazy speed. It closed the distance of nearly 100 meters in less than 10 seconds, moving in great bounding leaps that sent up sprays of snow with each landing. I could hear Henri screaming, a high-pitched wail of pure terror that echoed off the ice cliffs. Then the creature reached him, and the screaming stopped. I was frozen, watching from the opening of my tent as the creature stood over Henry's motionless form. From this distance, I could see details that my mind struggled to accept. The creature stood at least 3 meters tall, with shoulders broader than any human could possess, arms that hung below its knees, and a head that was massive and slightly conical. Its face was dark, almost black, with a pronounced brow ridge and eyes that caught the sunlight and reflected it back with a golden gleam. It bent down, picked up Henry's body with one hand as easily as I might pick up a backpack, and began carrying him up the mountain, moving with that same impossible speed and grace. Within minutes, both the creature and Henri had disappeared into the labyrinth of ice formations above us. The other creatures had stopped their advance and were now standing in a loose semicircle around our camp, watching us with an attention that was distinctly unsettling. They did not appear aggressive now that Henri had been removed. They simply stood there, waiting, observing, making it clear that they could reach us at any moment, but were choosing not to. "Do not move," Dawa whispered urgently. "Do not speak. Do not make eye contact. They are deciding whether we have learned our lesson." We stayed like that for what felt like hours, but was probably only 20 or 30 minutes. The creatures stood motionless, and we remained in our tents, barely breathing, certainly not speaking. I could see one of them in my peripheral vision, and what struck me most was not its size or its obvious strength, but the intelligence in its posture. This was not an animal operating on instinct. This was a thinking, reasoning being making a conscious decision about our fate. Finally, one of them, I think it was the largest, though they were all enormous, made a gesture with one massive arm, pointing down the mountain. The meaning was unmistakable. Go. Leave. Do not return. Then, as quickly and silently as they had appeared, they were gone, melting back into the ice fields and disappearing into the maze of seracs and crevasses that humans could not navigate without extreme difficulty and significant risk. We did not speak. We did not discuss options or debate the best course of action. We packed our tents and equipment with shaking hands and numb minds, moving like automatons through the familiar routines of breaking camp. The circle of skulls remained where it had been placed, and we stepped carefully over it, respectful of boundaries we now understood had real consequences. Kenji's camera had captured some of what happened, though I did not know how much. He held it close to his chest as we descended, protecting it like it contained evidence of the divine or the damned, and perhaps it did both. Dawa led the way, moving quickly but carefully, choosing a route that would get us off the mountain as fast as possible while avoiding the most dangerous terrain. No one mentioned Henri. There was nothing to say. He had made his choice, had ignored the warnings, had run when he should have remained still. And now he was gone, taken by something that existed in direct contradiction to everything I thought I knew about the world. We descended through Camp 2 without stopping, pushed through Camp 1 in a blur of exhaustion and fear, and finally reached our base camp as the sun was setting on what was undoubtedly the worst day of my professional career. Our support staff, 2 cooks and a camp manager who had remained at base camp, took one look at our faces and knew that something catastrophic had happened. "Henri," the camp manager asked. "Gone," I said. "Avalanche." The lie came easily because the truth was impossible to explain. His body was carried into a crevasse field. Unrecoverable. It was the story we would tell, the story we would swear to, the official explanation that would satisfy insurance companies and embassies and grieving families. An avalanche, a terrible accident, the random cruelty of mountains that kill without malice or meaning. But that night, sitting in the dining tent with hot tea warming our hands and altitude headaches throbbing in our skulls, Dawa told us the truth that the official story would never contain. "The Yeti does not kill for food," he said quietly. "It kills to protect." Henri was taken not because he was prey, but because he was warned and did not listen. The creatures of the mountain gave him 3 chances. The tracks were the first warning. The skulls were the second. The roar was the third. He could have survived. He could have shown respect, humility, understanding. Instead, he ran, showing that he had learned nothing, that he would return with others, that he would violate the mountain's sanctity again and again. "What did they do with him?" Kenji asked, his voice barely audible. Dawa was silent for a long moment. "They took him to their place," he finally said. "High on the mountain, in ice caves that humans cannot reach. They will preserve him there, in the cold, as a reminder. As a teacher, when other Yeti are young, they are shown these preserved humans and taught. This is what comes when you do not defend the sacred places. This is what humans become when they trespass too far. Remember and guard and protect." We left Nepal 3 days later, after giving statements to local authorities and completing the paperwork required when someone dies on a mountain. The official report listed the cause of death as lost in avalanche, body unrecovered, which was technically true in the way that all the best lies contain a kernel of truth. Kenji had hours of footage on his cameras, including several clear shots of the creatures descending the mountain and one brief but unmistakable sequence showing one of them carrying Henri away. We watched the footage once, in a hotel room in Kathmandu, and then Kenji did something I did not expect. He erased it all. Every frame, every second gone. "Why?" I asked, even though I thought I knew the answer. "Because," he said, "if I release this, people will come. Cryptozoologists, documentary crews, trophy hunters, scientists. They will swarm that mountain seeking proof, seeking glory, seeking to capture or kill what we saw. And the Yeti will defend itself. And many people will die. I cannot be responsible for that." He was right, of course. The footage would have been the discovery of the century, proof of a species that science insisted could not exist. It would have made him famous and wealthy. And it would have turned that pristine valley into a circus of human arrogance and ambition. Dawa returned to his village in the Solo Khumbu region and, as far as I know, never spoke about what happened. The Sherpa people have lived in the shadow of these mountains for generations, and they understand that some things are better left unspoken, some mysteries better left unsolved. I returned to Colorado, to my small house in Boulder, to my life as a guide and instructor. But I was changed in ways that I could not articulate and did not want to examine too closely. I had seen something that should not exist, had witnessed intelligence and purpose in a creature that science categorized as impossible or, at best, a misidentification of known species. And I had watched that creature make a decision about human life based on criteria that were entirely rational: warning, escalation, enforcement. The Yeti was not a monster. It was a guardian, doing exactly what guardians do, protecting what had been entrusted to its care. For months after the expedition, I was haunted by dreams of those creatures. Not nightmares, exactly, but vivid, unsettling visions of being watched from high ridges, of golden eyes reflecting moonlight, of massive shapes moving through ice fields with impossible grace. I would wake in the darkness of my bedroom, thousands of kilometers from the Himalayas, and feel absolutely certain that I was being observed, evaluated, remembered. I stopped guiding commercial expeditions. I told my clients that I was injured, that I needed time to recover, that I was retiring from professional mountaineering. The truth was simpler and more complicated. I could not in good conscience lead people into those high places anymore. Knowing what I knew, understanding what I understood about the price of trespassing in domains that were never meant for humans. If you followed this account to this point, You understand that some truths are more important than comfort or convenience. Please subscribe to our channel and share this story, not to sensationalize or exploit, but to spread a message that desperately needs to be heard. There are limits to human dominion, boundaries that should not be crossed, guardians that will enforce those boundaries with absolute finality. Your engagement helps ensure that this warning reaches those who need to hear it most. I took a position teaching wilderness safety at a community college, working with students who dreamed of climbing great peaks but had no concept of what those dreams might cost. I tried to teach them not just about ice climbing techniques and avalanche assessment, but about respect, about humility, about understanding that the mountains do not exist for our entertainment or ego gratification. Some of them listened, many did not, and I wondered how many of them would one day stand where I had stood, would see what I had seen, would face a choice between respect and arrogance, between wisdom and ambition. 6 months after the expedition, I received a package from Kenji. It contained a single photograph, printed on high-quality paper, showing the summit pyramid of Kanchenjunga at dawn, the snow glowing pink and gold in the early light. On the back, he had written only, "Some mountains are sacred. Some mysteries are meant to remain mysteries. I will not return. I hope you do not either." I framed that photograph and hung it on the wall of my office at the college, where it serves as a daily reminder of what I learned in those 3 days above 7,000 meters. The mountains are beautiful, yes. They are challenging, inspiring, transformative. But they are not ours. They belong to something older, something that was there before humans learned to walk upright, something that will be there long after our civilization has crumbled to dust. And they are protected. 2 years have passed since that expedition. I have not returned to the Himalayas, and I never will. Not because I am afraid, though I would be lying if I said fear played no role in my decision, but because I have learned the lesson that Henri did not survive to learn. There are places in this world where we are not welcome, where our presence is a violation, where we exist only at the sufferance of guardians who are more powerful and purposeful than we are. I still receive emails from former clients asking me to guide them on various peaks. I decline politely, recommending other guides who are younger, stronger, and still believe that the mountains are challenges to be conquered rather than sacred spaces to be respected. I do not tell them why I stopped guiding. I do not share what I saw or what I learned. Some truths are too dangerous to spread, too likely to inspire exactly the wrong kind of attention. But I am telling you now, whoever you are, reading or listening to these words, I am breaking my silence because I have come to believe that the greater danger lies not in speaking, but in remaining silent. Every year, more climbers push into more remote regions. Every year, technology makes it easier to reach places that should remain unreachable. Every year, the wilderness shrinks, and the guardians have less space to patrol, fewer refuges from human intrusion. I think about Henri often. I wonder if his body is still there, preserved in some ice cave high on Kanchenjunga, serving as a lesson to creatures that should not exist but undeniably do. I wonder if they look at him and see what I see. A cautionary tale about the cost of arrogance, a reminder that not all boundaries are arbitrary, that some warnings come from genuine danger rather than superstition or cowardice. I think about those golden eyes watching me from the darkness of my tent, making a decision about my worthiness to survive. I was spared not because I was brave or skilled or deserving, but because I demonstrated the capacity to learn, to understand, to accept limits. I was allowed to live because I showed respect, even if that respect came from fear rather than wisdom. The Yeti is real. I have seen it, been judged by it, and been found barely acceptable. It is ancient and intelligent and utterly dedicated to its purpose, protecting the high places from those who would violate them. It does not kill from malice or hunger. It kills to teach, to warn, to maintain boundaries that human civilization has forgotten how to respect. And it is not alone. Dawa told me, in one of our last conversations before we parted ways, that there are guardians in all the great mountain ranges of the world. Different names, different forms, but the same purpose: to protect what remains wild, to defend what should remain sacred, to ensure that some mysteries persist in a world that seeks to eliminate all mystery. The Yeti of the Himalayas, the Sasquatch of the American Northwest, the Yeren of the Chinese mountains, the Almas of the Caucasus, he said. Different peoples, different languages, but always the same story. Something that walks like a man but is not a man. Something that protects the wild places. Something that punishes those who go too far. Do you really believe they're all the same species? I asked. He smiled sadly. I believe they are all serving the same purpose. Whether they are related by blood or by function does not matter. What matters is that they are there, watching, protecting, enforcing boundaries that humans have forgotten existed. I have come to share his belief. The evidence of my own eyes and ears, the testimony of cultures separated by continents and centuries, the consistent patterns in the stories and sightings. All of it points to a truth that science and rationality cannot comfortably accommodate. We are not alone on this planet, and we are not the apex species in every environment. In the high places, the cold places, the wild places that remain beyond the reach of our roads and cities and communication networks, there are guardians, and they are watching. This is my testimony. This is my warning. And this is my plea. Respect the boundaries. Heed the warnings. Understand that not every mountain needs to be climbed. Not every mystery needs to be solved. Not every challenge needs to be conquered. The Yeti does not want to be discovered. It does not want to be studied or photographed or proven to exist. It wants to be left alone to fulfill its ancient purpose in peace. If you go to the mountains, go with humility. If you see tracks that should not be there, turn back. If you hear calls in the night that make your blood run cold, leave at first light. And if you see skulls arranged in patterns around your camp, do not test your luck further. These are not mysteries to be solved, but warnings to be heeded. Henri did not listen, and Henri is gone, preserved in ice at the top of the world, a lesson for creatures that most humans will never see. I listened, barely and belatedly, and I survived to tell this tale. The question now is, will you listen? Will you respect what I have learned at such terrible cost? Or will you, like so many before you, convince yourself that the rules do not apply to you, that you are different, that you can succeed where others have failed? The mountains are waiting. The guardians are watching, and they are patient beyond human comprehension because they measure time in geological ages rather than human lifespans. They have protected the high places for millennia, and they will continue to protect them for millennia more. The only question is how many more lessons they will need to teach, how many more humans will need to be taken and preserved and displayed as warnings before we finally, collectively, learn to respect boundaries that have always been there. I have told you what I know. I have shared what I have seen, and I have warned you as clearly as I can. Some mountains are sacred, some mysteries are meant to remain unsolved, and some guardians will enforce those boundaries with absolute and final authority. Respect the wild places, heed the warnings, and stay away from Kangchenjunga, where the Yeti still patrols, where Henri still serves as a frozen reminder, where the line between human ambition and natural consequence is written in ice and blood and bones. The choice, as always, is yours. But remember, the guardians are watching, the mountains are patient, and the lessons they teach are permanent. If this account has moved you, if it has changed how you think about the wilderness and our place within it, please subscribe and share this story widely. not for views or engagement, but because this message could save lives. The guardians are real, the warnings are genuine, and the cost of ignoring them is absolute. Thank you for listening. Thank you for considering. And thank you, above all, for respecting what should remain forever wild and forever protected.